I think it's actually Jan Nisbet.
Got it.
I think it's Jan Nisbet.
Oh, yeah. It's actually Sally and Dan. You're muted.
Here's Jan.
Oh, hello, Jan.
Hello. All right, so are we going to open the traditional way, Holly? Over to you.
Oh, you're muted, Holly.
Sophie will open us. Thank you, Sophie.
Oh, no worries. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina kiuta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hia kiana tia tākura he tio, he huka, he hauhunga, ti hei mauri ora.
Thank you and welcome to our community board meeting for the 22nd of February 2022. And thank you for those who have zoomed in to join us. This is our first time running a community board meeting completely virtually, but certainly not the first time for many of our board members in relation to work over the last few years have started to get a little bit used to such things. So first of all, we're just going to start with some apologies, and I believe we have an apology from Dan. Is that right, Tina?
That's right. He can't make it tonight.
Yeah, okay. So an apology from Dan. All of those in favour? Do we accept any other apologies?
Janet Holborough.
Janet Holborough.
Martin Halliday. Councillor Halliday.
Okay. Note all of those apologies are noted. And declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda. Anybody? No. Item number 4 is public speaking time. So Jan, I'm guessing maybe because you're here it's for public speaking time, or are you just here as a member of the public?
Speaking, please.
Yes, good. I wouldn't expect anything less.
So do you want me to go now?
Yep, you're
Okay.
right now.
Right. So I'm speaking as part of, Sally, could you stop doing the dishes, please? I'm speaking as part of the Cycleway, Walkway, Bridleway Advisory Group to Council. And one of the matters of concern, as many members may well know, or if you don't know, you will know, has been the exit of the track Te Whora to Ara o Whareroa, that when it goes out onto Poplar Avenue. Sophie can fill you in on all the details. At the present time, this is just a heads up that there is a campaign to try and get council staff to actually realise that it's probably the most unsafe cycling place in the whole of the Kapiti area. I understand that a report has been written by a consultant and it's come back to council. Various people have been away, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sophie, it probably will go to council and we may not need community board support. But as it's many of our young people who go to college, I just want you to know that there is a campaign and we may need to call upon your support if we don't get an outcome that is making it much safer. So Sophie, maybe I could just check. That's probably about what I needed to say, is it not today?
Oh no, you're totally here on your own accord, but yeah, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. And yeah, as Jan mentioned, so there's been a safety review done of the crossing that was done end of last year and over summer, and has been finished and is on the desk currently of team people within the roading team. So we're kind of waiting to see what recommendations are likely to come out of that independent safety review, and if the actions require council funding, then yes, as you mentioned, Jan, if they're kind of big enough that they need to come to council, then yeah, if it's something the community board would like to back, as Jan mentioned, I think it's a really important bit of road and a bit of cycleway actually that we need to make sure is safe. So yeah, I'll keep you all posted on kind of where things are at too. But yeah, just to let you know that something will likely be coming either back to kind of council by way of a recommendation needing to spend some more money on improving safety in the next kind of month or so. So or it'll
Right.
just it'll be that some minor improvements can be made in the meantime. So I'll keep you posted. And yeah, thanks Jan for your advocacy. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. And I'd just like
Just-
to say that I think all of the board members do realise what an important, am I being heard or am I frozen? Because you guys are all frozen.
You're frozen.
How important, you know, how many kids from our village, you
And I just
I
heard,
froze.
You got frozen
Go,
out
Jan.
then, Holly.
Okay. All I was saying was that I'd just like to acknowledge that I think, and I can safely speak for all of the board members here, that we acknowledge how many of our tamariki and rangatahi from our village use that cycleway, and that it is a community board issue. Even though it might be in Raumati, it is a Paekākāriki community board issue as much as it is a Raumati board issue. So just acknowledge that.
and the other thing I want to say is the signs on the cycle signs on Wellington Road. I'm talking with Janice Hill, who's standing in as the CWB, Cycleway, Walkway, Bridleway council officer at the moment, and we're having good discussions about how to try and make vehicles more aware that that's a pinch point for cycles. So I'll keep you posted on that one as well.
Great.
Thank you, Dan.
Excuse me, I'm just trying to sort out my dodgy internet connection, but I'm not having much luck. So on my iPad, I'm not used to it. So is anybody else for public speaking? I think that's it. No,
Yeah, that's
no
it
one
as
else?
far as I know.
Okay. So members' business. What we have been doing as a community board has been meeting with Ngāti Haumia about the Weavers Whare, the unveiling of the mural down there at the Tilly Road Reserve, and which has been postponed and delayed for various reasons, tangihanga being the primary one. So local hapu have suffered quite a lot of deaths in a row. And then last weekend it was deferred because of bad weather. So it is this coming Saturday, as I believe, as that works with council timelines. And so that is an unveiling, keeping to the COVID restrictions, and hopefully it doesn't pour with rain like it did last Saturday, or whatever Saturday it was. And yeah, so looking forward to that. I'm personally really proud of what Ngāti Haumia have achieved, and it's been a really great learning opportunity for their hapu, but it's been an enormous amount of work as well, that they don't directly get paid for, but they get to see their tipuna on an important building in our village. So I acknowledge what a big lot of work that has been. And the community board have been gathering a kete, a koha kete to give to the artists, and hopefully the chair of Ngāti Haumia ki Paekākāriki in recognition of that work as well, knowing that they took on that work and really holding dear the intentions of the community that was communicated to them via our board, and so I do acknowledge that too. So it's been a successful partnership, I think. And seawall, so there's been a few discussions with Paul and with another artist, well, not another artist, an artist, Tim Barlow, who we've been in conversation with about project managing the Paekākāriki seawall. That's still in ongoing discussions at the moment, and that's possibly about it. Oh, and emergency preparedness. So it's been pretty high on the meeting agenda for probably all board members, and you'll be hearing about that a little bit later in tonight's meeting. Tina, anything to add?
No, nothing to add. So talk all of what you've said. I can say when Dan sent his apology, he said that he has been reviewing the resource consent for the motorway to see if they have fulfilled all of their commitments to the community, and he will follow that up.
Oh, I do have a thing to add. Now, this is quite a nice little tidbit. So that Tina and I and Dan flew on the fly-by-wire and on a very hot day in January. So the owner of the fly-by-wire had contacted the board wanting to strengthen ties with the community, and he had a new operator, and so he invited the board to walk up the hill. And to be honest, I'd never been up there, and I did not expect to get a free ride, and I wasn't even sure if I wanted a free ride, but as it turned out, I did want a free ride when in Rome, and so Tina led the way, and we did have a free ride on the fly-by-wire, and started to get an understanding of what about what that experience is, and it was a very generous offer from Neil Harrop. And just acknowledge that. Yeah. Anything to add, Tina?
No, I wouldn't do it again. It was pretty cool. Not quite my thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was, mildly terrified, but I held it together okay. And it was a very hot day, I have to say. It was an extremely hot day walking up there. Yeah. But the view up there is beautiful, and it's a really beautiful walk. So if for nothing else, just to walk up there for the walk and to see the work that they've done on the pathways is really nice too. On the walk. And Sophie or Jess, have you got anything to add to members' business?
The only thing really in that emergency preparedness space from me would be the village Zoom calls that we're now doing fortnightly on the evenings. So just kind of bringing whoever wants to jump in together to talk about how we can prepare as a village, and also prepare as individual households and different kind of community clusters within the village as well, household clusters I should say. So we've got one next Monday from 7:30 until kind of 8:30ish, and the kind of theme or topic will be preparing as individuals and as household clusters for COVID-19 with a health lens. So we've got a whole bunch of speakers, 3 speakers. Kieran's organising for a GP to come along and kind of let us know about some of those things we should look out for, some of those symptoms that kind of might require us seeking further medical support or attention. And then we've also got some people talking about long COVID and the tail of COVID, and what that might mean for individuals, and especially people who might be vulnerable in our community, and how we can best support them. And then I can't remember who the other. We've got a pretty diverse group.
And Nikki, haven't we got Nikki Walker?
Nikki Walker.
From the natural lens as well, about how we support our immune systems and our bodies to cope, or to hopefully not get it, maybe.
Fingers crossed. So I made a Facebook event on Paekākāriki to Hoko Hoko, so feel free to jump on there. The Zoom link's there. It's a reoccurring Zoom link for each fortnight on a Monday morning or Monday evening. My head's all over the place. Monday evening, 7:30. Feel free to jump on there if you're around.
And thank you to Sally and our public who did join us for our first little Zooey. Jan, so your lovely Sally did join us, and I think you might have been there in the background. I wasn't sure.
And the other thing the emergency preparedness group is doing is putting out a mailbox drop, because we are aware that some people aren't hooked into social media, and those that aren't are likely to be more vulnerable, or in that vulnerable group.
And just for clarity, that Tina and I both sit on that emergency preparedness group as community board members. It is part of our delegated function to inform and to encourage our community to keep safe and all of the ways that could happen. So it's part of our delegated functions, and we do sit on that board for that reason. Or not board, in that group, that CAB group, yeah. So next on the agenda, we've got, let me just pull it up. So report, so consideration of funding applications. Let me just get to the right page.
Excuse me, was there anything from Jess for members business before we go on?
Oh, Jess, sorry.
Hey, so, yeah, that's all right. Yeah, it's kind of good. Not really. I've been just very busy with the crazy flowchart that is created for being a teacher, and you know, this happen if that happened, if this doesn't, and a few of them have. And yeah, only really my immediate neighbours. I've kind of gone and dropped some notes off because there's some people I know are not in our neighbourhood group. And I've asked a student who's very, very familiar with everybody in the village and where they all live. I've asked him to tell me where anybody lives who looks like a grandparent kind of age, and he's going to give me because we do have online groups, but I'm feeling like, yeah, we, you know, I quite like to make sure there's a few people that we make contact with. That's all I've got.
Great, thanks, Jess. So on to the next item, which is funding applications. We've only received one funding application for this round, and it is a funding application from Paekākāriki Informed Communities Incorporated, PICI, which is for $480 to assist with the cost of updating the COVID Community Emergency Hub on paekākāriki.nz. And now this group applied for this through our discretionary fund. I would like to move that this grant is paid from our COVID emergency fund. It's absolutely COVID related. And yeah, so I would like to make, I'd like to move that the Paekākāriki Community Board approves the funding application from Paekākāriki Informed Communities Incorporated for $480 to assist with the cost of updating the COVID Community Emergency Hub on paekākāriki.nz, and that this grant be paid from the COVID Emergency Fund.
I'll second that.
I'll second that. Carried. Along with our funding applications, I would like to note that the Paekākāriki Community Board receives and notes the accountability report from the receipt of accountability reports from the Combined Lions Club of Kapiti, and that the Paekākāriki Community Board receives and notes the accountability report and receipt of accountability reports from the Kapiti Chorale. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Carried.
All of us.
Thank you.
One, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I'm just having to scroll on my thing. It doesn't really, you need to have multiple screens open. Oh, and we're up to item number 7, which is an update on the seawall project from Paul Busang. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair and elected members. Apologies, I just had to duck off before the cleaner thought it was a good night to party while he was didn't want to make it sound like there was all sorts going on in the background. I guess it's a little bit disappointing to report back that the progress has been relatively limited in terms of since we last caught up in regards to the seawall itself. I think we're finding the same headwinds that everybody else is finding out there at the moment. In terms of things that are still moving, obviously the progression on Access Way 4, things are taking a bit longer than what had been promised. In fact, I was hoping, I was told that I would be able to have something to be able to share for tonight or prior to tonight, but that hasn't happened at this point. I don't mean that as a slur on any individual person or company or anything. I think it's just everybody coping with, everyone seems to be in either a remote working setup or an in the office, out of the office rotation. And everyone else is trying to get everything done at the same time with the amount of I guess, stimulus money in the construction industry throughout New Zealand at the moment. So in terms of actual updates itself, we've had a meeting obviously with Tim Barlow and Rosie Sellis, I can't remember her full title, but I'll call her arts coordinator at the library here, and obviously tapping into the, there's a $20,000 arts fund that's been made available for the project as well, of which we're wanting to utilise obviously for Tim's oversight of the coordination and integration of the art elements with the project. So Rosie has come on and actually helping out in that space at the moment, and just sorting out that engagement contract with Tim in terms of progressing that. The timber wall design itself, I may have talked a bit about it last time for the remaining 900 odd meters. We have made the decision to do some additional what's called CPT tests, or cone penetration tests. For those that know or don't know, it's basically just a way of understanding the strength and the ground conditions, because we're leaning towards a design that includes what's called ground screws as opposed to the old traditional ground deadman anchors. And the reason for wanting to favour that is in terms of the impact on the road itself and how far construction has to reach out into there. So we've engaged ProDrill, I think it is, to do that work in order to provide us and reduce some of that risk and provide a bit more surety. But obviously that then puts delays in regards to the overall timber wall design, which, if you can remember about how we've got Access Way 4, which we're under this drive to try and deliver as much as we can this financial year, and also the longer term, which is delivering across the entire length. What else have I got? Obviously with the communication side, one of the things we were planning on working towards, which was put up on our website prior to Christmas, was that we would have this information to be able to put it up there for people, and also then to go through a campaign of directing the community to this information, so they would be able to have an eye and see what's actually going and what things are actually progressing. But without actually that information, we haven't obviously been able to put anything up, and then we haven't been able to do the letter drop, or the pamphlet drop, whatever you want to call it, that we were envisaging, and the use of the local notice boards down there. So once again, that's put some delays in that space. Obviously, our program, our design is to still progress that as fast as we can in regards to Access Way 4. But it feels like I'm running uphill in way steep treacle at the moment, to be honest. Just, yeah, I don't want to make excuses for anything, but it just seems to be the way it is at the moment. Yeah, so from that point of view, I made a couple of notes. I'm just seeing if there's anything else that I've missed off. Yeah, so it is a relatively limited update until we actually get that further information through, which we'll be able to share with yourselves and the actual community. So I'm not sure if there's any questions you'd like to ask at this point in stage. Oh, sorry, there is another update, because I know some questions have been raised and I have been unable to answer them in the past regarding what's happening with the seawall, or the intention behind the seawall, and particularly in that shared path road interface things. And I have had it confirmed that obviously that will be a shared path of some shape or form will be provided as part of this, but obviously there is no designs or commitment to widths or all that sort of stuff at this stage, which will obviously be part of further discussions when we start looking at the whole 900 meters as opposed to the Access Way 4. So for me, that was a good little bit of information to be able to confirm for myself, and providing surety in terms of where I'm going with this project as well. So if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to try and answer them at this point in time, or if there's anything else that you'd like to know.
Yeah, I have a question, Paul. And that is around, look, this was always a tight deadline. I remember when you came to us and said, well, this is going to be happening in January. And look, I sympathise with you. I know that a lot of things are beyond your control, so there's no blame going on here. But I would like to know your contingency, and council's contingency. So if this money is not spent within this financial year, which, let's be honest, it may not. And what's the contingency from council's perspective, just to make sure that, and to ensure that the seawall, the elements of the seawall doesn't continue to get financially eroded away.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And my understanding is that our SLT have been having those conversations with council because of they see and are hearing the same things coming through. The two risks that are there that I see, one of which, and to give you an example of some of the tenders, because we've got quite a lot of other CapEx work out at the moment. On average, we're probably looking somewhere between prices coming in 40, or basically double what our engineers' estimates are. And that's going to have implications. Well, first of all, I won't say it's good news because it's not good news. In terms of the spending the money, all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, it's been building. It's very easy to be spending money at the moment, but the problem is you're not actually going to be getting what you would have been getting in regards to that. So there's a couple of conversations that I'm sure will be coming up through SLT and through the council and the likes regarding those implications, because it's not just in the coastal space, through the stormwater space, and I know definitely in the water and wastewater space as well. It seems to be happening industry wide. There's so much construction work out there. There's just an industry lack of resource, and also the supply constraints and everything. So from what I've been told, that has been raised up, and it is something that is obviously going to be at the council table. My hope and expectation, I guess, is that there will be, with COVID and all the other delays and bits and pieces, more tendency to be able to carry some of the stuff over. But the caveat I put on that as well is there's a big delivery program next year as well. And so there's the potential for a bit of a snowball developing here, where there's still a lot of work to be done. We're still going to be facing the same headwinds, and we're going to have increasing costs, which are going to mean that we're not going to be able to, we may be able to spend the money, but we may not be able to deliver the value that you would have done maybe 12, 24 months ago in that space. So I don't know, hopefully that answers, or at least provides some context to what you were asking.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. And I would just like it noted in the minutes, please, that if this project had not been deferred, then this would have been a cheaper project for the council to put out. If it was kept as in the original long-term plan, this would have been it would have been cheaper then for the council. I'd just like it noted. And yeah. I suppose, I know that I understand that there's so many unknowns and contractors, and from what I hear is that there's not enough contractors. Have you, now I'm speaking on behalf of the community and here and emails that I've had from the community, have you looked at looking at local contractors, and when is your tender going out? Is it already out? What's the date on that?
The way the thought processes behind this, and the use of Access Way 4 as the starting point. It was an area of high risk in terms of looking at the condition assessment of the wall, the areas of the wall. So it worked from that point of view. The second one was taking it pretty much as it was previously discussed and agreed through a significant amount of consultation, that it would be something we'd be able to pick up and deliver a lot quicker. That hasn't been the case so far. The work with the Accessway 4 does involve, I'm not saying that it would exclude local contractors, but it would certainly not what I would call their bread and butter. The remaining 900 metres of the wall going to a timber construction, I would be comfortable saying that it would be bread and butter for certainly 2 or 3 of our local contractors, because they have been involved in building what is essentially a similar structures throughout our district as well.
Yeah.
So
well, what I would just sort of answer to that, Paul, and you might not be aware that one of the members of the Paekākāriki seawall design group built the original wall that's still there right now, and is also an expert in constructing concrete seawalls. So is there an opportunity there to explore something one-to-one with a contractor that's local, who might be able to deliver this on time and within budget? I'm not speaking for him. I'm just thinking, well, if there's somebody here who has the expertise, wouldn't that be good to explore?
yeah, more than happy to get involved in any conversations around that space. And yeah, it certainly would make sense in terms of whether they have local knowledge and experience as well. It's definitely a big plus. Once again, the only caveat I'd put on that is in regards to our procurement policy and what we have to follow in regards to the expenditures, but I don't want to exclude. I'm not saying, I think there's definitely value to have a conversation, and I'm more than happy to be involved in any conversation in that space. Particularly even just to have an understanding in regards to those elements of construction that may be subcontracted as opposed to those that can be delivered locally.
Okay, well, I'll connect you after this meeting with that person, and you can have those conversations and see if there's any there's any viability there. But yeah, thanks for being open to that.
I've got a question about the $20,000 arts fund, Paul. So could you just clarify that $20,000 that you mentioned, that's separate from the $200,000 art fund for the wall that the community board is advising on?
Yes, the short answer is yes. It was money that was put aside through some arts fund through council, and it was used for adding to obviously the art element of the Paekākāriki seawall. The discussions with Ian Littlesworth and Rosie, they feel quite comfortable in terms of using that money for something that's resulting in the end delivery of that art. And they've supposedly already sent some of that information around a couple of members of the arts panel, which also I'm led to believe were involved in the earlier conversations around the seawall as well. And the early feedback from them is they're feeling comfortable with what they're seeing as well. But yes, the short answer to your answer is yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I was just going to say, Paul, thanks for the update, and it'll be interesting to see when that information makes it to council, because we haven't yet had an update. So it's a bit of a about the costs ballooning out. I think probably we all saw it coming to an extent, but that's to an extent that I hadn't quite foreseen. So it'll be interesting to see how it moves from here, and yeah, what we need to do as a board to.
I think there's some comms here that would be useful to go out. So if yourself or in your comms team, Paul, that you could get some draft of comms to us to say, look, this is where we're at for these reasons, even if they're vague. Like, it's okay to say COVID, we can't manage, we are stretched. That's okay, that's all right, that's valid. and it's looking like this. Actually warm the community up to the idea that they're not going to get everything that they wished for, I think is a good and wise thing. That's my own. I don't know how the rest of the board feel about that, but it is my gut instinct that the more information our community have, transparent communication that they have, the better they'll work with what they've got.
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of ask or make it might be a comment, but just thinking on that, the climate that like Holly said, if it had not been deferred, it could have come in a lot cheaper and would have been potentially finished by now. And that there may come a time later where everything we're talking about, the difficulties and the blowouts of budgets and all kinds of things, have moved on, and it might be the case that we're left in Paekākāriki looking around going, oh, we just kind of lucked out, and there's other communities and there's other projects that are going to be fulfilled to a higher standard, more pleasing for that community and that particular remit somewhere else, and we might be left going, oh, we're just kind of, oh, that's tough. So I'm wondering whether if it's the kind of project that can be added to later, that somehow that can be recognized or built in, that we are kind of sucking it up quite a bit in Paekākāriki, not because it's not anybody's fault, but is this are we going to be able to revisit it? Or because it feels like it might be well, it comes around, doesn't it, like, oh, well, they had this budget, this in this round this many years ago, and so it might be a long time before it seems acceptable for Paekākāriki to have
or we might have something really substandard, Jess. I think that's a really good point. And I can tell you right now that there is no way that our community is going to stand for anything that is below functional.
Yeah.
So and if we look at the walkway that's there now, that council did without any community input, which is how this whole seawall design group was born, which is an absolute shame. And it's terrible. And I walk along it all the time, and it's full of potholes and there's concrete put. It's like I could do a better job on my driveway. It's terrible. And if we're going to get that, then I think the community would say, no, don't worry about it. We'll spend our money elsewhere, because we're not going to take that. We're not prepared to scrimp down on something that doesn't even perform in a perfunctory way. That pathway certainly does not. So if that's what we're going to get, then that's my worst nightmare. If that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, and I'd like to go back to what we touched on in our last meeting with Ian, isn't it? And we were just all, you look around at what is just expected of something like a seawall. I think of New Plymouth, I think of places where, just the artworks on the motorway, just what you would expect in a town that of works that are done in 2022. We can't be looking at it going, oh, if only we were like other places. That's not really, it's not going to be acceptable. And I think that would, like I say, I'm not saying, oh, that's terrible, it's being done to us, but it is a true thing, and that is how our community is going to feel.
If you're okay, just I can't talk in terms of absolutes or anything in regards, but something that just jumped into my mind, which I thought I might just share, which may not allay any concerns or anything, but one of the good things about going with a timber design for the majority of the wall, and the fact that we do have 2 sets of condition survey for the wall, of which, you know, there's areas that will be lasting longer than others in that, but at least I thought I might mention that at least going with the timber design, you're able to target making sure that you're and I have no knowledge in this area in terms of what the future might pan out, but if money does become a bit tighter in the future in regards to that, at least with the timber one, it'll be much easier to be able to target any areas that are more at risk than others to start with. And then if you're having to come back a little bit later to do other bits, having a overall timber design would make it, and the ability to use local contractors is a significant advantage than having to do sort of a piecemeal concrete wall section by section, where you've got all these what I would call weak points between an existing wall and a concrete wall. The ability to work with the timber option.
Which I think where those tie-ins become really important, Paul. So that those tie-ins so rather than the wall itself, it's the tie-ins where the rock revetment meets the walkway. It's also where the rock revetment meets the wall. And so, you know, those bits, those elements are really, really important, because a lot of the consent that was agreed was about planting in those, and if they are completely full with concrete, like exactly how full of concrete do they need to be, what size stones, because there was meshing originally in some of those rocks so that it could support planting, which would then support the rocks in the high seas to not get dislodged, and the rocks were of a certain size. But if we get to a sudden point where it's like, oh, we can't get those rocks of a certain size, they're too expensive, we're going to get smaller rocks and we're going to concrete them in, so there's no chance of anything growing or bugger all. And that they do get dislodged, because that's what's happened. We've already had that. They do get dislodged, and then council come and pour some blobs of concrete. That's what it looks like along that walkway. There's just like, we've just poured some more blobs of concrete along there to hold the rocks in. So all I'm saying is that there can be a slippery slope between going, oh well, let's go from these big rocks to, okay, well, the budget's suddenly gone down because the big rocks are really expensive, and now we're going to go small rocks, and there's not going to be any planting in those rocks because they can't, because they're going to have to be concreted in because they're so small. And suddenly we're at that point, and we've got a barren rock wall which is full of blobs of concrete like the one we've got currently, which I know that my community do not want. How do we mitigate that?
Yeah, you've raised very, very valid points, and those tie-in points are critical. And whether it be, and maybe I'm just being mindful of making sure I'm not speaking too far outside my brief here, but this isn't just going to be something facing Paekākāriki seawall. This will be all our stormwater renewal projects. This is going to be all our wastewater projects. It's going to be all our roading projects. It's an issue that the council is going to have to face in the next 12 to 24 months, when the reality of this flows through the system, and it becomes very apparent. So there's a bigger issue. It's not just going to be the Paekākāriki seawall that's got this pressure. It's going to be across the board. So parking that to the side, yeah, in terms of, if I was thinking about how to prevent or mitigate risks in those areas, it might be that, yeah, you do focus at providing that the conditions assessment, makes the existing wall still satisfactory to be used to buy a little bit of time, focusing on those tie-in areas. And you may have heard me talk about the risks and the concerns around Access Way 4. That's where, from the messages I'm getting, that the engineers, that's the bit they get nervous about. And I guess from their professional liability point of view, that's the bit that's on the chopping block if they don't get it right. So it could be about the staging, because over the 5 years, it might be that we make different decisions around staging minimise some of those risks where we do look at those tie-in points, so that it means coming back to do the timber bits at a later point is a lesser risk.
Well, I mean, I would just encourage you. I know that we're coming up to March, and this elected term finishes in October, and this is a big project. So I am constantly thinking about longevity and how we can see this project through right to the end. Personally, myself, I won't be restanding come October. I've done my 6 years, and I have, which is one of the great reasons why the Seawall Design Group was initially established. So they had, there's a lot of expert knowledge, and there's also a lot of local knowledge. So there's an opportunity there, whether it's the existing design group and that gets reinvigorated, but how do we see this through? Because my first thing that I think of is like, well, those tie-in walls, any engineer doesn't know the same, they know the engineering stuff, but they don't see what that looks like in 5-10 years time. But certainly our locals do know what happens when that, so they see it in a different light. And I think that other voice is really valid and important to try and get something, a structure that is informed by local knowledge as well as local expert knowledge, because we do have that in our village, and it's given for free, and it's enormously valuable. So my question is this project rolls forwards. This is an exact, when it comes to the tie-ins, I go, well, I have a little bit of knowledge, but it's up to me to go to my community and go, well, those who have got more knowledge, what do you think? When really it should be council doing that. That's why the Seawall Group was established in the first place. And I understand that it was difficult in the end, but that shouldn't stop a new iteration or a new agreement going forward to actually have some consistency going forward, because the board is going to change, the community board is going to change come October. And I don't expect us to come up with an answer for that tonight, but I think it is something for consideration from everybody here about how best to see this important project forward. Sophie might have something to add to that.
Not really to add, but I would just completely agree that the longevity has to be there from a communications perspective as well out to our community, but also making sure that people who are in these roles following us have a really good understanding of the history and everything that's kind of happened to this point and where we're at. And I think it's really important that a lot of that kind of starts to be prepared early, so that as soon as they're in these roles that they have a really up-to-date understanding of where things are at. I would say that's really important. I just 100% agree with everything you've said, Holly. Yeah.
And even Paul, we look at KCDC and the different people that we've been engaged with in your role through this project, and there's been a few of you, and it's great to have you on board. And this is nothing personal, but you might, life happens, and changes happen. And this is a long project. How do we get that consistency throughout this project? And I do think that the community Seawall Group, design group, it might take more work, it might take more negotiation, it might take more commitment and communication, but I think the result will be better. Yeah. And it might not, we need to maybe look at how we might put some perimeters around that, so that it's clearly defined about what their role is and what they are to do and how. And I think that might help going forward.
I talk all that, Holly. Yep.
Oh, you're muted, Jess.
I think a group like that might also help with that kind of mitigation. Often a group like that with that expertise and the local knowledge can have just a little bit of imaginative, you know, think outside the box or have seen something different. So yeah, in lots of ways are going to be really.
So I suppose just from this meeting, now Steve, we haven't said hello to you probably at all. In fact, haven't said hello to you at all. But I am guessing that yeah, you here as manager, I don't even know, because communications have been a bit wishy-washy this week.
Hi, Holly. I'm acting James, so acting group manager for regulatory services this week. So stepping in for James while he's on holidays. So and yeah, so just sort of following this conversation, note your concerns. Obviously, you've all got the interest of the community, but Paekākāriki community at heart. I'm the building team manager in my other job. So whilst I'm aware of the seawall, I don't have a lot of detail on it. So I've sort of, hence the reason why I've been sort of quiet and listening to what you've all been saying. The only thing I would suggest is you've raised a number of points that Paul and I can go away and discuss, and then we can come back to you, or Paul and James will come back to you at the next meeting as an update on that particular point, if you're happy with that approach. Yeah,
that's what I was sort of asking for, is that that action could be taken forward by yourself and or Paul to look at giving some perimeters and around what a seawall design group, what their scope is and how they are engaged with the long-term vision of this wall. So not about access way 4, about the completion of the entire seawall, to give some consistency. That would be really great if you could carry that forward, Steve and Paul.
We will take that away and we will have a look into it. There's no guarantee I'm going to be here to deliver it back to you, but Amanda would have noted in the minutes, and we will round the council officers will round back to you on the matter.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Has anybody else got anything to add on that item, of the seawall item? I do have one question, and that is that we have had a request from a member of the public, and this person is probably not alone, that to have an update of, because this was not it is a public meeting, but it is via Zoom, but I think it's recorded and then put up on the website. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. I'm recording it now, and then it will get put up along with the minutes once we're finalised.
Okay, so where we can probably just publish this video on our Facebook page, just for those who, for whatever reason, weren't able to make it tonight, but who are particularly interested in this, in the seawall part of this discussion.
Yeah, I'll just have to check that that's all right with our democracy services team, because we'll publish it on our council website, but I'm not sure about publishing on an external website.
Well, we could probably just link to it.
I think that's the best option. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, no, can we leave that item, everybody?
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. So, so before we actually get to a confirmation of minutes, I realised that there was something that we should have spoken about under our funding applications, or matters of an urgent nature. And Tina, I think I'll get you to lead this one if you like.
Okay, so this is it's part of our discussions in the emergency preparedness group. We've been preparing a flyer for delivery in letterboxes around the village with some key information in it, and we have been given some figures for designing that by a local, and we are wanting council to print that for us and arrange delivery for us. We would be happy to pay for the flyer design out of the COVID relief fund, should that application be made, but we think it's the place of council to assist us in our delegated powers in emergencies to keep our community safe. So we'd be looking for those flyers once they're designed to be printed and a delivery arranged as has been done in the past.
Steve, can you talk to that, or Amanda, can you talk to that?
Look, I'd sort of comment on that at this particular point. Note your comments. What I'd suggest is that we will talk to the people back in the organisation who actually would be responsible for this. Obviously, it's not in the regulatory services space, so I can't commit the organisation to that yet. I do know from my own experience around providing information to the public, we have put information into rates letters, but that's become a little bit more problematic these days, given a lot of people get their rates via email. So what I suggest is leave it with us. We'll look into it, and then we can come back to you around whether we can support that or not.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
That the flyer isn't, it's not a bunch of information that is already out there. It's about local connections. It's about our local Zooey on a Monday night that Sophie talked about. It's about initiatives from the local grocery store to seek donations and put out food parcels for those that need it, that sort of stuff. So it's actually entirely about our local information and our local connections. We have a number of neighbourhood groups set up through Facebook, but there'll be people missing that information, and this is designed to target those people in particular who won't be on social media and won't be getting these messages.
And in the past, and in the past we have done letterbox drops. There's a lovely local boy at the school that Jess knows, who knows every letterbox in our little village, and I have paid him out of my own pocket. I don't think that is acceptable, and I don't think that's necessary. This is part of our delegated powers. If this money doesn't come from council, well, it's going to come from us as a board, and I don't think I think that council should be paying for this. If we wanted to put a letterbox drop about, I don't know, if we were trying to get people to our community board meetings, we're only looking in Paekākāriki. We're not looking at further, we're talking at every single house in Paekākāriki, and we're asking council to pay for the printing, which they can do. It's operational. It's not our job to do those operations. And to pay for our delivery guy.
Holly, yes. Can I just ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
The first one is, how big is the flyer? Like, is it A4 size or is it A5?
It's A5. It's A5, which will be, so that it can be big print for small people. So, okay. Yeah.
So A5 double-sided?
Yes, I would imagine so. Yeah.
And my other second question and follow up to that is, how many households approximately are we talking, so that I can get a rough
1,600. We've had
a quote. No, that's not correct. It's about 800. 1,600 people, 800, just under 800 houses.
Okay, that's good, so that I can get an idea when I talk to the comms people about the implications of that and how we want to do it. And my third question to that would be, when is the draft design going to be done then, Tina, so that I can show it to them and say,
we're hoping to get that done this week, so we're just following up on last minute information from various players in the village about what they're offering and how we're going to manage things. So
okay, so if you just send me a copy of that once it's done, then Steve and I can take this offline and go and talk to our lovely comms people about how we do that and the implications of that and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you. And I was
sorry, just to cut in there. Just for clarity, are you only talking about a one-off, or are you talking about doing this on a regular basis? Because initially I thought it was a one-off flyer, but then there was just reference made to sort of providing updates to the community.
No, because the flyer will have, you know, it'll have information to go and look online to our village website, which has got all of the current official information and other local stuff, plus some, you know, some of the initiatives that are happening over the next few months here.
And
Okay.
phone number for the community board to if you are isolated and you don't know where to look, it's got my phone number and Tina's phone number. For those people who don't have internet access, and there are those in the village who don't, but they might know me or they might know Tina, and they feel okay to say, look, I'm isolating and I can't get my groceries. Is there anybody, can you put me in touch with somebody who can pick them up for me? That sort of stuff. Look, it's kind of emergency 101, which absolutely. So we're trying to design a flyer rather than it just being a black and white, boring looking flyer that you look at and then you chuck in the bin. That you actually go, I'm going to keep this. This is actually really valuable, and you stick it on your fridge. And then come the next emergency for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or an earthquake or whatever, it's actually there, and that information is there, and you know that it's important. And so that's what we're aiming for.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just like to add to that, Amanda, thank you. And we will keep you in the loop over the next couple of days, Tina and I. And I would just like to add that Janet had mentioned, because I talked to Janet because she's in the emergency preparedness group too, and she'd said that that Janice McDougall would be the right person to forward that through. Or am I wrong?
I'm not entirely certain at this point, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah, because I was going to send her an email, but I ran out of time before this meeting, so that's all good. Thank you. Thanks for taking that forward. I appreciate it. Okay, so back to the agenda and confirmation of minutes. I have read the minutes and I'm happy to approve they are true and accurate record. Do I get a seconder?
I'll second.
Yeah. Thank you, carried. Now, this is a question, Amanda, and I know it's probably not normal practice, but when I read through the minutes, I note that there's quite a lot of actions, and it's really easy to lose the actions when you're a busy board, as we are. And is it possible to highlight Sophie will send da 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 da, so that when we go through those minutes, we can kind of just quickly is that too much to ask or not?
The problem we have is if we put those up on the website, then people go and try and print them out or whatever reason, the colour might not come out properly. So if we're doing it for the official version that goes up on the website saying it's a true and correct version, then that'll be a bit of a challenge for some people. But if it's just for a draft version that you guys see before you approve it,
that would be really
that'd
good.
be
I would
probably
find
doable.
It helpful.
Yeah, I would find it helpful
before the agenda comes out. So rather than because obviously this time I didn't get to see the draft agenda for whatever reason, with James being away and life
we've got a
being
new
up in the air.
democracy services person working on it at the moment. So.
Yeah, I know, and I appreciate those things. But I didn't get to view the draft minutes or talk to James or sign off that agenda as chair. So let's not do that again, because I think, as a process that would be questionable. But maybe, is it possible? I don't want to put more work on your plate, but I'm just thinking it would be really great to get the minutes separately, like before the agenda. So, when I don't know when you do the minutes, but once you've done the minutes and then you send them out, and then we can kind of go action point, would be super helpful.
Yeah, we can do that on the draft that I send to you guys for your reading, but we just can't do it on the final version that goes on the website. That's all I'm saying.
That's fine, but I think what Holly's saying, Amanda, is that the sooner the better, not just when we get our pack the week before the meeting.
Yeah, because I do the draft minutes pretty much as soon.
Yeah, so if we can get the draft with that highlighted, and then we can at least note what we've taken on to do.
All right, then I'll see what I can do.
See what you do. Yeah. If you can't, if it's actually asking too much, that's okay to Amanda. So if you say no, actually,
I think it'll be
my
doable.
workload's full on and I don't need that extra.
I think it'll be doable. We'll just figure out how. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just say in another committee that I sit on, I don't know if this would be easier or harder. We've got a bot we actually put them in a box at the end of it. And so yeah. But
I think you're committed to the standard as approved by KCDC though, aren't you?
so that would be
That's correct.
Yeah.
We can't set that up, otherwise I get in trouble.
Yeah. It's something that needs to be going to maybe council to the table to say, hey, look, this isn't really working, maybe in our review or something. All right, but let's move on. The minutes are confirmed. Matters under action. So this is you, Steve. Item number 9.
Oh, you're muted, Steve.
Apologies for that. Nothing to report from the last meeting. I went through and had a look at these yesterday, and there you would have seen around the coastal protection upgrade project, and you've heard the update from Paul, so I'm not going to reiterate what he was saying before. Around the Transmission Gully project, there's no further update on that point. The revocation, NZTA have now decided not to revoke the state highway status of the road. Any changes to the road at or near Paekākāriki Township will be post-opening of Transmission Gully. So there's no further update after that particular point. And as we've all read in the media, there's a question about when Transmission Gully will open. So we'll have to sort of work to that particular point. Ian's coffee shop, the responsible officer at this point, there's no further update on that. The Wainui Whenua project, Tina?
Nothing to report on that. No real progress at this stage.
All right, thank you. The proposed way station commercial vehicle safety centre, no further update. The possible renaming and use of the culturally significant names for use of culturally significant names of the roads in Paekākāriki. Again, from the GM Reg Services, no further update. Trimming of flax near the Weavers Whare. Again, no further update, I'm sorry. And then the cycle sign on Wellington Road, no further update. And last, removal of one parking space in the village and replacement with bike racks for safety. No further update on that as well, I'm sorry.
So I note that the previous speaker, Jan Nesbitt, covered off a bit about the cycle sign as well, because she's the one that's working on that. So and in relation to the Weavers Whare, I can just give you an extra update that I've just had, and that's that Tony is getting the depot people out there to with Kahu to figure out what they're going to trim and where. So that's happening.
Thanks, Amanda, for that.
Holly, you're muted.
Sorry. I think there's a few items on there that probably need to be updated and amended, but we'll leave that to our next meeting when James is back on board, Steve. I think that makes more sense than to go into it now. Would the rest of the board agree? Okay, great. And where are we up to? That's the end of our is that right? Let me just go back up to the top. It's very hard to scroll and be live at the same time on one screen. And there's sorry.
That's it, I think, Holly.
Yeah, and so thanks for those who've stayed or that might be watching this later. And our next meeting is on the 20. Let me have a look just to double check. It is the 29th of March. So for those watching who might want to put in a funding application or come and speak to the board about certain matters, I would urge you to get in contact with us earlier rather than later. Any funding applications do need to be received 8 working days before the close, before our meeting. So yeah, keep that in mind. And thank you. And I'm going to ask Sophie to close. So thank you. And thank you, Steve. And thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm feeling like I really need to learn a proper closing karakia, but for now, that can be my challenge to myself for the next month ahead. But for now, I'll close with the one that I began with. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina kiuta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hia ki ana tia tākura, he tio, he huka, he hohunga ti hei, mauri ora.
Kia ora.
Yeah, have a good evening.
Yeah, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.